Perfect. Welcome, everybody. So excited to be here with Dr. Jasmine Escalera. Can you start by just telling us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what makes you have such a radiant smile?
Oh my gosh, I love that question, especially the last one. It's so funny. This is totally off topic. It is not my intro, but I have to tell you, I did this meditation this morning. So I'm very big into spirituality, very big into self help, but I have not gone into the meditation space yet. And the reason being is that every time I try to lay down and meditate, I was always thinking that I had to like have no thoughts at all. Like I can't think about anything. And I was putting so much pressure on myself as this perfectionist. Even in my mindful work, I'm like, we're going to get this right. And so restarted meditation after hearing someone say, no, it's not about not having thoughts. It's about having thoughts and learning how to like just kind of transition them out of your mind like a cloud. So I got back into meditation, and today I was doing a meditation. It was a guided meditation. And I know that you're into leadership. And one of the things that they were asking me to do in this guided meditation was to think about my strengths, like think about what makes me really unique. And all of a sudden, this word has never come up for me ever. But all of a sudden, the first strength that came up in my mind, which much of it must have been in my subconscious, was shining. And so when you say radiant smile, it kind of makes me remember this morning's meditation. And I remember after the meditation, I said, what the hell does the word shining mean? That's so weird of a second. Like, whose strength is shining? So I'm still
Nice.
trying to figure out what that strength is and how I
Yeah.
use it. Maybe you can help me, being that you're the leadership person, because I'm like, I have no idea what that means. But my name is Dr.
Yeah.
Jasmine Escalera. I am what I would call a spiritual neuroscientist. I'm also a reinvention strategist. So I help women who are at phases and times of their life where they feel like they've accomplished great things, but they almost have like checked the check boxes. Like, okay, I was supposed to do that, and I was supposed to do that, and I was supposed to do that. And now they're kind of like throwing their hands up in the air and saying, there's got to be more out there. Like, I feel as though I lived the checkbox life. And now I really want to focus on what is it that I want to achieve? What does success mean to me? What does passion mean to me? What does happiness mean to me? And I help them find clarity around what that reinvention is, and then actually build the strategies to undergo it and the courage as well. And so I created a community called the Courage Crew, where women come together who are in that phase of reinvention so that we can support each other through it and also get clear strategies on how to really reinvent your personal and professional life. But I didn't start there. So my first business was actually career coaching. So I used to coach women who were in very toxic work environments, predominantly women of color, to learn the fact that, or to kind of play with the fact that it isn't just your job that you should be thinking about, but also your work environment. And that in fact, in order to bring your whole authentic self into the workplace, you really actually do have to think about that work environment, because you can be working on confidence. You can be working on wanting to take action and take up space and take up a room. But if you're not in the right work environment that really supports that, you're not going to be able to implement it. And so I started out as a career coach, but a few years ago, probably about 2 years ago, I started to realize that career coaching wasn't necessarily my calling anymore in the phase of life that I was in. And that's when I started to really think about, what does Jasmine love to do? And I have to tell you that one of the things that I love to do the most is reinvent myself and change and transform and grow. And so that's really what I do now, is support women to do that.
Nice. That's beautiful. I feel like this conversation can go in 30 different ways because every single point you said
Maybe
is
you
so
can
important.
help me figure out what shining means. I mean, I really have no freaking idea. It was the craziest thing.
Yeah. Well, as a kid, did anyone ever tell you you were like a ray of sunshine?
I mean, that's probably something that my dad would have said. My dad
Yes.
probably would have said, "Oh, you're like a little ray of sunshine." But yeah, maybe I think I use really good creams like on my skin, and people tell me that I glow a lot, and I'm like, "Oh, it's the argan
Nice.
oil. It's not me. It's
Yeah,
like."
it's true. It's no, it's interesting because I think a lot of these things that were like, where did that really come from? Like we trace it back so far, and then it's like, oh wow,
Mhm.
that one
Yeah.
comment. Like when I started out, I started with communication a little bit more in the realm of public speaking. And
Mhm.
I had to really have a moment where I was sitting with myself and like, why is this so appealing to me? And like, why am I so gung ho about like being passionate and like saying the thing and like not really caring how the other person reacts? And I had to trace it all the way back to like grade 7 or grade 8. And when you're like 12, 13, and we had to write a poem. And I wrote this poem and I was so excited to present it. And it was one of those like, I'm blanking on the word, but it had to be a very impactful poem. And I presented it to the class, and literally I started by making like a bang, like a clanging sound to get everyone's attention. And my teacher did not like that. And she like docked marks, and I got a lower grade than I expected. And I was like crushed. And then that like derailed all my public speaking dreams for years. It's like one moment.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
but
like
that's
it's
that's actually
crazy.
like super that it's true though. I actually had a conversation for the Courage Crew with a coach. Her name is Ruby Garcia. And she was talking about how something happened when she was young. I think she might have said it she was like 12 years old.
Yeah.
Getting bullied in school. And she said well into her 30s, she was still feeling the impact of that. And we were talking about how, everything that we do today has its origins in something that we learned in the past. And one of the biggest transformations, I would say one of the most challenging things I had to go through in my own spiritual and mindset journey was realizing that so many of the mindsets that were passed down to me were the reasons why I couldn't do the things that I wanted to
Mm,
do. They weren't the empowering mindsets, they were the reasons why I didn't have what I wanted or I wasn't living the way that I wanted. And that built up an immense level of resentment. I had I held a lot of resentment towards my family and a lot of resentment towards my parents for some time. And working through that required for me to realize that they were working off of the programs that they received. And, I was working off of the programs that I received, but that we ultimately always have control over deciding if the program we are running on is adequate for the person that we want to be and the life that we want to live. And I had to take full ownership and responsibility over the fact that I was angry and resentful for someone inserting a program in me when I had perfectly all the ownership to just stop running the program. But it's not that easy.
yeah, I feel like we need to unpack that a little bit because the awareness to get to the place to say, like, I have a choice in the programming that I have comes with this bittersweet realization of, like, here's this person that's supposed to love me and that has good intentions, but put so much pain and trauma and suffering into me, even if it's unintentional. It's like, like reconciling that fact is so hard for so many people.
Yeah, it was really hard for me for a very long time. And I think, and the way that I worked through it, I offer it as a suggestion, but I think that everybody's healing journey is their own. And we should all take in and ingest so much information and almost kind of ask ourselves and our soul what feels good to me. But what worked for me was realizing that I put the label of parent on my parents with expectations. So I had expectations around what it meant to be a parent, right? It
Yeah.
meant that they had to love me a certain way, do things a certain way. But those were expectations that I placed on two humans that were not available and could not handle those expectations as I placed on them. And so I think that when we place expectations on people, and it's, especially when they hold these very big titles like parent,
Mhm.
we can sometimes set ourselves up for disaster, but we don't know that as kids, right? Like as kids, you don't know, oh, I'm calling this person my parent, and that means all these different things. And are they capable of doing all these different things for me? We don't know that as kids. But as adults, we can start to understand that these are just humans, and we have put
Mhm.
a label on these humans, and that label that we put on them had expectations. And we have to realize that, and ask ourselves, were they capable of being able to do that? My parents were very capable of loving me, supporting me, and guiding me in the best way they knew how. Was that enough all the time? No. But that's okay. Like, as an adult, I can now understand that and give my young self that love and give myself today that love. But it's hard when you're young. You can't comprehend it in that way.
No, not at all. It's a topic near and dear to my heart. My entire dissertation research revolved around the idea of like, where do kids get their belief systems from? And like, when you think about something like stereotypes or biases, which we'll put to the side for now, it's like, where are kids developing these? Because they're just sponges. They're like clean, blank sponges when we come into the world. And it's actually ridiculous the amount of sources of influence that we have going against us that we're not even aware of. So, if you allow me for a second, I have come up with this funky little onion layer theory that really shows how we're impacted. And the idea is like at the core, it's who we are, like at the core of the onion, in the center, it's just us. We're just these innocent little, beings. And at every layer, it starts with like your family, the people closest to you, your guardians, goes a layer outer to like your teachers, your best friends in your class, the people you interact with, a layer out your community, the people you're exposed to, the things that you see, go a layer out the shows that you're watching, the messages that you're listening to. And really, I think the thing to notice is like when you think of an onion molding, it always starts on the outside and works its way in. And it's the exact same thing with us. We're not, you know, bad by any means when we're born, but it's all these things making their way into us and the way that we think and the way that we believe things to be true without us realizing. Like, it's so crazy. Like, I've got two kids. My daughter is almost 6 and my son is almost 4. And the amount of things that they're watching that just have so many implicit messages in them all the time is just like insane. So I've taken it upon myself to like start breaking it down. As an example, are you familiar with Wicked, the movie that came out, the Broadway
Yeah,
show?
I saw it actually in the theaters. Yeah.
Yeah, great movie, beautiful music. My daughter's obsessed with Glinda because she's pink and she's pretty. And so we
Yeah.
had to like
Yeah, I
sit
would
down
bet.
and be
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, and
That's
like
like
analyze
over
it and
the
break it
top
down.
character.
Yes. Yeah, and she's so drawn to her and her little, 5-year-old self. It's like her beautiful dresses and her hair, and I want the clips and I want the purses. And I'm like, okay, but like let's look at how she's acting. Okay, but let's look at the things that she's saying and doing. Like, okay, but Alphaba is like rejected because she's green, but look at the like values that she stands for, right? And so it's like if you're not intentional with those moments, it's no surprise then as kids, you're like, oh well, parents are supposed to do this. Disney told me that this is this beautiful life
Yeah,
I can
but
expect.
I mean, there's so I can't even imagine what it's like to be an aware parent. A parent that is fully aware and open to what is going on around and understand. Like, it sounds like you're understanding so deeply what is the message that's coming through. Many parents don't do that because they simply don't have the time, or they haven't yet gotten there in their own healing journey, whatever the case might be. But to be a fully aware parent, I mean, I would probably wrap my kid in bubble wrap, put a blindfold on them and earbuds in their ear, and like never let them move, because it's impossible. It's everywhere. The messaging is everywhere around what it means to be a girl, a woman, what it means to be a boy, a man. There's still so much of that, and it's really challenging. And with social media, there's so much good that has come from social media, so much good, but there's also so much toxicity that has come from there too. And I think you're absolutely right in that we, even as adults, have to be fully aware of like what are we taking in and what are we ingesting and what are we saying and what are we thinking, because it also falls on us as well.
Yes, it does. It's a good point with the social media. I love using social media as an example because, like you said, there's so much
Mhm.
good on there. if you're intentional and you go and you find role models to look up to, whatever your goal is in life, right? Perfect for reinvention, whatever it is you're working towards. I can go and curate an entire feed of people I look up to who are, um, infusing my mind with the right kind of information that will help me evolve and transform and move in the right direction. Or I can go and mindlessly scroll and lose all my motivation and fall down the deep, dark, depressing hole of social media. Like it, it's crazy how it can go both ways, and it's really up to us and the resilience and the mental strength and the intention to actually use it wisely.
Absolutely, 100%. And you can go down that rabbit hole of finding all the right things that make sense to you, but then you're also staying in your bubble, and then you're not testing yourself, and you're not seeing other things, and you're not challenging your own thoughts or challenging your own way of being. And so I don't know what the right answer is. I mean, for me personally, it's like I always tell myself or I always ask myself, how is this making me feel right now in the moment? And
Mm,
trying to do those check-ins with myself. Because let me tell you, I found myself the other day mindlessly scrolling on Instagram for about 20, 25 minutes. And I was having the funnest time of my life. I was literally cracking up because people are so creative. Like the
yeah.
dances and the sounds and the song. I was dying laughing for that 20, 25 minutes. I felt like it was well worth my time because I mean the world around me could have been burning and I would have been like, this is the most hilarious thing I've ever seen. Like I would have been just continuing to do the scroll. So I think
Yeah.
it's all about like, how is the messages that you're hearing? How are the people around you? How is the show that you're watching? How is the book that you're reading? How is your Instagram scrolling truly making you feel? Is it making you feel better? Is it making you feel lighter? Is it making you feel happier? Sometimes when I go on Instagram, I have to immediately shut the app because I actually start to feel these feelings that I don't want to feel, feelings of jealousy, feelings of envy, feelings of judgment. And that's when I know I'm not in the right place and I'm not in the right space. And so I think it's all about the feelings that things evoke in you. And when it feels good, keep doing it. And when it feels bad, and you always know when it feels bad, that's the moment to say and assess, like, not only am I doing the right thing, but am I in the right situation? Am I in the right place? Am I with the right people?
I agree with that so deeply. I think there's so much power in learning to center yourself and be who you are at the core without letting everyone's doing this or everyone's talking about this or everyone's doing it this way impact you and get you out of that place. So let me ask you this, I guess, when you are working with your clients or when you're dealing with individuals going through reinvention, what would you say are like two or three of the biggest mindset challenges that come up for people?
I think one of the biggest ones that I seem to encounter a lot is I'm too old to change, or, it's too
Oh,
late in my life to try. I think that's
mm,
one that I come up with a lot. Reinvention is something that I believe is actually our purpose in this life. Our purpose in this life is to transform. Our purpose in this life is to taste all the flavors of ice cream in the ice cream shop so that we can decide which flavor we truly want right now in this life to call our favorite. And that gets to change as we continue to go and as we continue to grow and as we continue to experience more things. But I think that people are always chasing purpose when I truly believe purpose is growth. Purpose is trying. Purpose is going out there and experiencing things to then decide, how do I want to live? How do I want to grow? What do I want to do? And so oftentimes we feed this level of stuckness, or we feed this desire to stay comfortable by making up a lot of things that are not true, like I'm too old to change or it's too late for me to change. I think
mm,
another thing that I hear, and this is something that I really ask you about as well. I am not a mom. Oftentimes
mm,
I do hear from moms, I just don't have the time. Like, my priorities are my kids, and I have to put 100% into them. And, as a daughter, my answer is yes. Yeah, I totally agree with that. As a coach, and also as someone who wants to see everyone get to their level of success, however they define it, my pushback to that is always yes. And how can you also show to them that you, as a human, as a being, as a woman, as a person, also do get to live out your goals? And even if that's just a few moments a week where you get to spend time thinking about, what do I want to achieve? Where do I want to go? What does success look like for me? How do I want to be as a mom? How do I want to be as a woman? How do I want to be as a partner? How do I want to be as a human? Even if it's just those few moments, that's showing your children that it's important to also think about yourself, that it's not selfish to think about oneself. So I think that's another thing that I get often from women is, there are other things that I have to prioritize above myself. And those priorities make a lot of sense, like children or partnership or parents. So that's another one that I often get a lot. I also get, I don't know where to start, and for me, it's like you're never gonna know where to start. Like that, you just start, right? You just follow the
Yeah.
feeling. So I think when it comes to reinvention and when it comes to transformation, it's a challenging thing because we want to stay in our comfort zone, and biologically, our body, our mind, our brain wants us to stay where we are. We are being fed, we are being housed, we are safe. And so, whatever is on that other side of reinvention or transformation could bring potential hardship, could bring potential challenge. And so, our mind is always going to trigger us to think of some reason we shouldn't do it because we're perfectly fine where we are in terms of safety. And so, we have to fight that biological system, which is challenging for us to do, but it requires for us to acknowledge that to get to where we want to go, to have the external things that we want, to have that feeling of fulfillment and freedom, it is on the other side of transformation.
Yeah, that was beautiful. I'm gonna unpack it bit by bit. The first thing that really stood out to me is like you have such a beautiful perspective on it, where the purpose of life is the growth, is the evolution, is the process of finding yourself at every stage. And I can attest to that. I mean, who I was as a kid changed when I went to, university, changed when I went to graduate school, changed when I became a mom. And to me, or at least me personally, I could honestly say it is genuinely more scary to stay the same than to change. And that is after, years of self-work and years of self-development and years of working on my mindset. But when I look at people, if you are the same type of individual in the same place 10 years later, that's scary to me. Like I would rather put on the
I agree.
blindfold and step into the fear.
I
Yeah.
agree. I agree. Yes.
But it's hard, exactly as you said, because for so many people, the comfort zone, it's just like a cage of familiarity. It's what they're used to. It's
Mhm.
all that they know. And I think it really comes down to how many people in their life are pushing them to take the steps, or at the very least getting out of the way so they can walk through their fear, versus how many people, even if it's just the self perception of these people, keeping them confined by discouraging them, maybe talking down on their goals. But often, your family and your friends who love you the most are the people who hold you back the hardest. And I speak with so many people who are like, I want these things and I have these goals and I want to change and I'm thinking about doing this way. But my mom and dad were like, why would you ever do that? Don't you even try? My best friend is like, what a waste of time. My partner made fun of me. And they just have all this like doubt and negativity being put towards them. And then that's where it goes back to, okay, can you find yourself and your center and your groundedness and quite literally like push through that and evolve as if you're like breaking out
Yeah.
of a cocoon of doubt. But
Yeah. Well, I think, you're hitting something really so powerful. And I feel like this needs to be mentioned that you're absolutely right. There's a lot of delusion that comes in transformation. Like there were times and there still are where I was 110% straight up delusional, right? Like I was telling myself things that were not true. So I was walking on the beach saying, I'm a millionaire. I own that condo and that condo and that. I didn't own none of them damn condos. I didn't have the money in the bank to own none of them dang condos. I didn't have the money in the bank for 1% of the down payment to own any of them dang condos. But you couldn't tell
Mhm.
me I didn't own one. So it's a lot of transformation comes with this state of almost kind of like I'm acting, I'm being, I'm thinking in a delusional state. And
Yeah.
that is going to trigger a lot of people to say, yo, you straight up crazy, right? Like, what is going on with you? And that means you're on the right path. Because if
Yeah.
you are thinking, you're thinking so far ahead of yourself and other people think you straight crazy, that means you're going down the right path. Because that means you are thinking bigger than those around you and even bigger than your old self. But I also think what helped me a lot is like, yes, I faced a lot of opposition in many of the things that I've done and many of the transformations that I've had from my parents. They no longer oppose me. They think they're like, do whatever you're doing. But from my
Yeah.
parents, from friends, and all I used to tell myself was they're speaking through their trauma lens. They're speaking through their limiting beliefs. They're speaking through their old beliefs that they haven't yet grown out of. And I can love them so much. But because they're speaking through their trauma or their limits or their imposter syndrome or their doubt, I can almost see it as that's yours. It doesn't have to be mine. And so it helped for me to almost kind of like separate what I was going through and the healing that I was going through and the transformation that I was going through from everybody else's unhealed self. And what I always used to tell myself was if I take myself on this journey, and I still tell myself this, if I take myself on this journey, it will inspire other people to think differently. And so everything that I have done in the last few years, including moving down to Miami, inspired my parents to leave New York City after being there for 60 plus years and to
Wow.
take themselves on their own little journey. And so everything that you're doing is going to first trigger people,
Mhm.
and that's okay. And then after they see how happy you are, how fulfilled you are, how much transformation is helping you, believe me, they will become inspired. And so it's just a matter of us recognizing that our journey is our journey and everyone else's triggers can be everybody else's triggers.
Yes, I agree with that. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I like to think of even within the same family, every single individual has a completely different experience of life. Even siblings. Siblings get treated differently. Siblings go through different grades, different teachers, different friends, different influences. Everything ends up different. And so I think there's so much freedom and value in coming to a place where you can, again, be centered and say, we're all playing. Like if this was one of those video games where people, play in groups together, like we're all playing together, but my point of view and the demons that I'm battling and the houses I'm running through are totally different than that person, than that person, than that person, even though we're all on the same team. And so even if it takes the acceptance of they just have to wait until I prove them wrong because I'm going to prove them wrong because I'm committing to this. Like, there's so much freedom in that and just holding still and holding true in this. So, like for myself, I'm not the first in my family to have a business, but I am the first to do it online and to do it in this way. And so it was the same thing where it was like, what are you talking about? Christina, you are now a doctor. Like, this doesn't make sense to us. Like, go do something traditional. It's like, no, sorry guys, no, you're just gonna have to watch the journey and see where I end up, and eventually
Traditional,
they come
I
to terms
yes.
with it. Yeah, never been traditional. Sorry guys,
Yeah.
but it's
And I think with our parents, I mean, I'm sure that you want this for your kids for sure. Safety, safety, stability. You want to know that, like, especially when you can't physically see them all the time, that they are good and they're okay and they're safe. What I'd say about my parents is almost kind of like, oh my God, they want me to be safe all the time, all the time. But their idea of safety and how I live my safety are two different things.
Yeah, it's you they want you to be in the bubble wrap, and you want to
Yeah.
be, like, balancing on the edge of the couch, jumping onto the counter,
This
like,
is
it's
why I do not have kids. This is why I don't have any children. I have the dog that's sleeping over there on his cute little bed. He's fine. He goes outside, he rolls around in dirt. I'm like, it's a dog.
Yeah, no, it's a lot to handle, and maybe we can save unpacking motherhood for a follow-up because it's a lot. But I do want to dive deeper into the whole concept of being overwhelmed and not knowing where to start because it is the best way to describe it. I feel like it's like every corner of your life that you look at, you're
Mhm.
like, I don't know what to do.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
love that because the thing is, I see it as like a spider web. And the thing
Mhm.
is, when you make one change, it ripples. And so, from your perspective, I guess, what are your favorite places to start to make those positive ripples?
I love that you said that because that's exactly how I describe it as well. I mean, reinvention and transformation is an internal process to create an external change. And that internal process means that your internal being is changing. So, no matter what, you're going to be completely different in every area of your life. And it is going to create that ripple effect. I think in terms of starting, the way that I kind of think about it is what change or transformation could you have that would naturally just help all of the other areas of life. So for example, a lot of women that I work with, they want to build wealth, especially generational wealth. For people of color, we hear this term generational wealth and we're like, okay, great, but how? There's no guidebook to creating generational wealth. So when I work with women that want to increase their income, it's always about, okay, so how can we make that additional income stream happen so that you can create generational wealth? So you might be feeling financial stress, but you might actually work on your confidence in your career to ask for that promotion or that pay raise because that's naturally going to create that ripple of more income, which is going to make you feel better, which is going to help you save, which might help you get that house, which might help you in whatever area, give back to your community. So it's really about like, yes, many people want to see transformation in so many different areas of life, but they're looking at the external byproducts. And so we really want to focus on the internal change, but also thinking about how do these things connect and what can you focus on that's naturally going to create change in other areas of life. So that's the first thing that I tell people is to just take a step back, take inventory and take stock. And what do you feel like needs to be transformed right now that is going to support you fully in other areas of life? And also, as you said, the spider web, knowing that no matter what, you are changing, you are transforming. You're not going to, if you focus on career, that doesn't mean you're not focusing on your health, right? Because if you focus on confidence in your career, you're going to start feeling like a baller. And automatically, then you're going to start saying to yourself, well, I want to be a baller everywhere. So that's how it just naturally occurs.
Yeah, I love that because I think for most people, it's easier to take tabs on the external things. But from my experience,
Mhm.
everything comes back to like one, two, three internal beliefs or internal personality traits, whatever you want to call them, that dictate everything else. So it's like the whole concept of how you do one thing is how you do everything. If you are someone who's, let's say, lazy, quote unquote lazy, and it's hard for you to do the thing, it's going to be hard to do the thing in your relationship with your kids, in your fitness, at your job. And like sometimes it's really just brutally honest coming to terms with all these external things that I want to change are a direct reflection of who I am. And who I am is fantastic, but just needs to be adapted in the best way possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love you
Yeah.
that you said that. Who I am is fantastic because when we get caught in this cycle of transformation and change and reinvention, and I want all these things to change, and you start looking deep into some of these internal systems that you need to work through, yeah, you can get caught up in the oh damn, like I'm not my best self trap. And we don't want you to be there. It's all about foundationally, I am whole. I have everything that I need. I am loved. I love myself. I am great. I am wonderful. And in order to get myself to the next phase, there are things that I just have to look at. And those things are not bad and they're not wrong. they just need to be changed. The system needs to be rebooted.
Yeah, no, I love that because have seen this so many times where individuals start down this journey, and it's one of those things where it's like I see it now. Like there's no going back. There's no unseeing it.
Mhm.
Like all of a sudden I see all the, the quirks and the errors and all the things, and it often leaves people in such a frustrated spot where it's like, well, like this is too much work to change, but now I feel like I'm a, POS that can't function. And so they're in this like very weird middle bubble. And I feel like from my experience, and maybe you can attest to this, like the only way to get out of that is to do the work to change.
Yeah, definitely. And there is something that I like to kind of call that uncomfortable middle spot that you're describing so beautifully, where you uncover these things and you're not yet the full new version of yourself, but you've also seen it. You've seen the tapestry and
Yes.
you're like, "Oh no, it really does need to be different." And so you're almost kind of you're floating in this uncomfortable middle space where you can't go backwards and you can't be the person that you were because you can't unsee what you've seen, but you're not yet the fully transformed version of yourself. And that uncomfortable middle spot is really uncomfortable because that comes with a lot of for me, it came with a lot of grief. So I was almost kind of like
Mhm.
grieving this
Yeah.
version of myself that I was walking away from. I was grieving friendships that I couldn't even have anymore. I was grieving the fact that, I was transforming my relationship and the way that I saw my parents, and I was not seeing them as much because that those feelings were so complicated. There was so much sadness and so much grief in that middle space and a lot of hardship. But what I always told myself was it's an uncomfortable space to be in, but you have to get through that in order to get to where you're going to go. And I couldn't, like you said, there's no way back. Like it's kind of weird to say that, but there was a point in life where I really was like, there is no going back. Like, I could never be the version of myself that I was before. So I've just got to sit in this, whatever this is, and we're going to keep moving forward. And that's, I think, when finding the right community is good for you, when finding mentorship is good for you, when leaning on people is good for you. That's when, finding that spiritual purpose is good for you. Those spiritual practices are good for you because then you can pull out from your toolbox. That's the space where the true version of you really starts to emerge. And it's although it's challenging, it is such a beautiful space because you just know there's no going back. I can only go forward, and forward is where the gifts are.
Yeah, it's true. For me, I definitely went through a period of grief and so much anger at like,
Mm.
I always knew better. Like, I always knew better, but I tolerated, I accepted, I continued, I stayed in what I was comfortable with. And there was anger at people external to me who, treated
Mhm.
me a certain way or did a certain thing. But there was so much internal anger as well that I had to process and deal with. And that was hard. I will not lie. That was hard.
It's
It's still hard
challenging.
some days. Yeah.
It's challenging. I
And
mean, it's hard a lot of days. Yeah, it's very challenging. You know, I think for me it was always sadness. I was always experiencing just an immense level of sadness. And the funny thing is, I got divorced 10 years ago, right around this time, exactly 10 years ago.
wow.
And um I didn't start my spiritual journey until about a year or so after I got divorced. I was in a very after my divorce, I was just in not a good place. I mean, divorces are very challenging. I was in not a good place and doing some very toxic things to myself. And I didn't start a spiritual journey until about a year or so after, when I was like, I had hit such a rock bottom, and I was like, okay, the only way we got to go is up. But 10 years after getting divorced, I went to a Reiki healer, and I thought I had healed this part of me. And after a Reiki healing session the next day, I found myself curled up on the floor, crying my eyes out, realizing that I was in a marriage where the person that I was married to didn't even know who I was. because
Mm,
I was so scared to show them who I was because I thought that I was so unworthy of love. And
yeah.
so, you know, it's interesting because that's something that I thought that I had healed so long ago. And that's how I think transformation and change really works, is like that onion that you were talking about. We're healing so many different layers of ourselves, and we get deeper and deeper and deeper. And so anger can come up, sadness can come up, all types of different feelings can come up in that middle space, and it's just perfectly normal.
Yeah, it's a very valid point I want to just reiterate because there's this misconception of like, well, if I've healed, it's 100% done,
Oh God,
close that book, I'm gone. Right? It's like
I
literally it
I
comes
thought
back
that.
up.
I thought that. I was like, wait a second, this was 10 years ago. We're still going through this. But
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
it I think it's all the different stages of it and phases of it.
Yeah, and the exactly the layers, and then you heal a bit, and then you have a different perspective on it, and then you're like, okay, well now I have to heal it from this perspective, with this understanding, and then you just come at it at different angles until
I think
eventually
we're
it's like,
scaring people now. Everybody's listening to this and they're like, I ain't gonna go do no reinvention, no transformation. I'm good where I am. You know what? I'm fine.
yeah.
My boss sucks, but that's okay. I'll take it.
Well, I know. I'd be curious to hear from your perspective. Do you feel like life puts people in a situation where they eventually have no choice but to reinvent?
Yes. Yeah.
I think so
100%.
too.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So for
So
everyone scared, just hang in there.
absolutely, absolutely. So, and actually, that's what I tell myself. So, I had gotten to a point where I was like, I don't want to live this again. And so I also believe that you in reincarnation. And so I believe that your soul's journey, if you don't do your soul's correction in this lifetime, you're gonna have to do it in the next one. So for me, I'm like, give me all of it, because in the next lifetime, I want to be a billionaire, and I want to be married to some hot man, and I want to be living on San Tropez because I'm fully healed. So I want to take all of it now. But no, I do believe that. I believe that pain
Mm,
is the pain is a part of your soul basically saying, like, it's time. Like, you didn't get all the notices, you didn't get all the calls, you didn't answer those calls when I was calling, you didn't get all those notices, you didn't check the mail, and now I'm going to put you in a situation where you are literally going to have to do it. So I
yeah.
think that that is absolutely true, and we should always be looking at the patterns. Like, what are the
Mm,
patterns? What are the things that are happening in your life that keep happening that you don't like? Not the stuff that you're celebrating all the time, the things that you don't like. That's where your correction is. And you are basically being constantly put in the same damn situation so that you can change. And if you don't want it to get to the point where pain now has to come in, or something else bad has to come in, so that you say, then, okay, now I'm going to do it, you should just listen. Like, if it's not working, do something different.
yeah, no, I agree with that. I think it's a little bit hard, I'd say, for some people to catch that. So I like to say there's like different clues that we get, right? So for some people, it's like, okay, I'm recognizing I'm having the same loop of thoughts. For some people, it's I recognize I'm having the same, depressive emotions or the same anger. Or what I like to say, like, notice those moments where you have that visceral, like, oh, like something happens or someone says something or you're asked to do something and you physically go like, oh, like I like, ugh. Like those are the clues that you're talking about where you're like, can we just please look at this thing and like deal with it? And sometimes we make a mountain out of a molehill or whatever the expression is, but it's true. Like sometimes it's those small tweaks that act as the domino effects that just make everything a little bit easier. And maybe it just starts with that one personality trait where you're like, okay, I'm going to now finally speak up for myself, and I don't want to do this, and I'm having the oh, and I'm angry doing it, and I'm angry after having done it, and all it takes is just putting up a boundary. And like I feel like so many people have these like big nebulous clouds floating over their heads of like the overwhelm that we've talked about. We're like, well, this and this and this, and I don't know where to start, and I don't know what to do, and it's just like pick the one thing that's making you go, oh, all day long and just start there.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And what I like to tell people also is, if you're not, because for me, I wasn't there, I wasn't tapped into my body enough to
Mm.
know what was making me go, like there was a time in my life where like my brain was running the show and there was no connection between this and this. Like
Yeah,
it was all this.
yeah,
And so I would say, like, for me, what helped was really taking a step back and looking at the patterns of what was actually happening in my life. So I remember the first time I started to think, oh, something's really going on here, was when I
mm,
kept finding myself in toxic workplace after toxic workplace after toxic workplace. And I had to take a step back and ask myself, well, wait a second, what is going on here? Because, I felt like I'm a great employee. I know what I'm doing. I can work really hard. I'm super diligent, but somehow I keep ending up in these places. And I had to then use that external circumstance as the trigger to say what within me needs to change. And so if you're not as tapped in with your body, because sometimes we're
yeah,
like operating as machines.
yeah,
And I hate to say that, but like I feel like at many points in my life, I was operating as a machine. I was fixing problems and I was doing things and I was waking up every day and doing the same thing over and over and over again. Um, Really taking stock of what do your relationships look like, your relationships with partners, your relationships with friends. What are some of the toxic patterns that are ongoing in that? What does your work life look like, and what are some of the things that are happening in your work life that just kind of keep repeating itself? And those external triggers can then have you able to then tap into, okay, what does this really make me feel, and what is that feeling that I have within myself? So yeah,
yeah.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I forget the days where I was not as tapped into the O. So thank you for that reminder.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's just, I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of funny because
Mm.
I forget those days a lot too, and I have to remind myself that, and we should be proud of ourselves for this. We've taken ourselves a long way on this damn journey. I mean, yeah, pats on the back. I mean, I still, it's hard because that's a programming thing. I grew up in the projects. I grew up in New York City. Like, I grew up a hustler. Like, we had to figure out how to make money. We had to figure out how to get food on the table. I had my first job when I was 13 years old. I was bringing in cash into my family's home. So I give a lot of props to myself. It still comes up though. There are still
Yeah,
many times when I'm not fully tapped into what's really going on with Jasmine. But I try
yeah,
my best as much as I can to be in that place, because that's where I want to fully operate. And I hope that one day I will fully operate from that place.
yeah, and I think maybe we can make a little bit of a distinction for the listeners because I think so many people start from looking at the external circumstances from the victim mindset. And I know it's like almost cliche to use that, and anyone in it doesn't want to own it and doesn't want to admit that they're in it because it's just so much easier to say, well, that toxic workplace was that person's fault, and that one, well, that's just that company culture, and that one, well, that's just that boss, and there's nothing wrong with me here. It's everyone else. And I have a very, very, very valid reasons and so much evidence to justify why it's never me. And so for me, I'm very much a tough love person. And so seeing people in victim mindset is like so hard for me, as a coach, as a person, as a friend. And I think for anyone in there, and I'd love to hear your perspective as well, it's like you really, really, really have to own your perspective and how you can shift it in the moment. So, like for myself, one of the hardest times in my own life, I've had many, but one of the hardest was after having my children. I was still in grad school full time. The sleep deprivation was very, very real. Postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression, dissertation, lack of sleep, everything just. And I was in such a place of uh, despair and unhappiness, and just like I was like a worn out dish rag. Like that's honestly how I thought of myself. Like I just had nothing left in me, but I had so many people around me who needed, quite literally, me. And I had to really come to terms with like, okay, I can either look at this as like everything sucks and why did I do this and why am I still like pursuing my PhD? Or I can look at this as like, okay, what's the one good thing? Like, what's the one good moment? What's the one snuggle? Like, how can I shift myself to then shift everything else? And that was such a massive change that was so hard to undergo. So I'm going to leave it there and sort of pass it off to you and like victim mindset perspective. What's your take on it?
Yeah, it's a hard place to get to, because you have to look at every situation, as you said, as I am here because of me. And like you said, you might be in a situation where you have stacked up the receipts that everybody else is doing wrong and you're trying your best and doing your best. But the way I like to think about it is everybody in this world and every situation in this world is presented to you for transformation. And so every single player, so all the people in your life are players in your game and in your movie. Every situation is a situation in your game and in your movie. And it isn't that you're doing anything wrong, it's that it's being presented as an opportunity for you to see, where can I level up? And sometimes the level up is, you know what? This situation is really crappy. And I would typically stay in this situation and blame everybody else. But the reaction that I want to have is different now. And so the reaction that I'm going to have is not to blame everybody else, but to take myself out of this situation. And so it could just very well be that you've stacked the receipts that show you that you don't need to be there anymore. And so it might just be that is the transformation. But if you start to kind of think of it as every single person is here in my game and in my movie to show me how to have the best life possible, that's the way that I kind of look at it. Every single person presents an opportunity for me. Every single situation presents an opportunity for me. It's an opportunity for me to grow. And that victim mindset can be so easy to sit in because that means that we don't have to do shit.
Yeah.
But you do. You have
It
to
feels
do
so
something.
good.
It does. It feels
Yeah,
good because it's great to blame somebody else because then it means I don't have to do a damn thing. You
exactly.
could stay there, but is that really helpful to you? I mean, I just kind of think of it as like, is it really going to help you? Is it really going to benefit you to stay in these situations stacking receipts?
Yeah, no, I love that because it's true. It's something I always ask people. It's like, what's more uncomfortable or what's more discomfort long term? Actually changing and doing the things you're avoiding or staying in the thing that's making you angry and depressed and miserable and whatever. But what is your advice for anyone who feels like it's selfish to make these changes?
So here's something that I play with a lot, and it sounds a little bit morbid. But it also goes back to your question before or what we were just talking about. I like to think about myself on the last day that I have on this earth.
Mm,
I like to think about my last moments. And I remember reading this book, and I think it was called the Truths of the Dying, or I can't remember the exact title of the book, but it was a palliative nurse who did interviews with people who were transitioning into their next life, passing on. And the number one regret was around not living for themselves, like not actually doing what they wanted to do for themselves. And so a lot of times I really think about like in my last moments,
yeah.
what do I really want? What would I really have wanted to have done? What would I really have wanted to experience? And when I'm in those situations that are really challenging and I don't have an answer, or I'm in those times where I'm thinking I'm selfish, I ask myself, like, what would that version of me in that moment want me to do? What would that version of me in that moment say to me right now? And it's a little morbid because we don't like to take ourselves to that place, but I take myself to that place all the time, all the time. And what I always tell myself is in those last moments, if I get to say to myself and to whoever else is around me, every single time, every single day, and every single moment, and every single opportunity, I gave it my best. I tried.
Yeah.
That
No,
would
I
be
agree
the
with
best
that.
thing.
I can I can play devil's advocate a little bit for the people who are like, okay, well, but my family. Okay, well, but my kids. Okay, well, but my partner. And I think it just all ties in together so beautifully where it's like you understand who you are, you understand your values, you understand what's important to you. Therefore, the next step is finding or curating relationships, friendships, communities, partnerships that support that and that can lift that up.
Mhm.
And I think it comes down to compromise because if we're being realistic, no one can just drop everything and really passionate about this. So I'm going to go do it.
Yeah.
But it's, I think you're absolutely right. It's like for me, like I said, my daughter's almost 6. I can look back on the past 6 years and be like, well, shoot, I wish I'd done things differently. And at every single point, it's like you're at the fork in the road of like, okay, can I start doing things differently so that 50, 60, 150 years from now, I want to live forever. Thank you. I can look back and say, well, I did things well, right? Or it's like, darn it, I never instilled the values. I never took the time to curate the relationships. I never invested in my kids looking at me as someone to be a role model to rather than someone who was like a doormat to walk over and gave them everything and they have no character to show for it. Um, an interesting an interesting quote I heard, and I have no idea where this is from, so sorry about that. But it's like the things that you went through, the hardships you went through, made you who you are. And if you don't give some of that to your children, they will not develop the character that you would like them to have. And like for me, that just
Mhm.
hit home because I'm like you want the best for everyone, and it's such a delicate balance, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you want, I would imagine, you want to give that to them and you want them to run with it and have their experience of it. And so, I kind of think about it as like my parents instilled some beautiful things onto me: strength, resilience, determination. And they used those qualities in their way. And they gave me those qualities, and I used them in a totally different way, in my way. And so it's beautiful to think about, as a daughter, it's beautiful to think about the things that my parents gave me that were the things that make me the best version of myself. I think we started the conversation with talking about the things that make you maybe not the best version of yourself, but the qualities that they instilled in me that make me the best version of myself, and how I took those qualities and just freaking ran with them. So that's like the beautiful aspect of it, right? Your parents, your family, your community. We talked about, the limiting beliefs or the programming that you need to change that they gave you, but they also gave you programming that you're still running on that makes you the version of yourself you are today, and you are running on it, and you will continue to run on it, and it's freaking amazing. And so there's that duality piece that I always kind of think about. Yeah, there are the things that I had to leave behind that my parents gave me, that I had to transform and that I had to change. And there are also things that I really just freaking love. Just love it.
yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. I think it's a very important exercise for everyone to do at least once, where so many of us tend to compartmentalize areas of our life and who we are in these different areas. And I think the practice of sitting down and, like you said, like, what are my strengths and how do they weave through every area of my life? Because it's easy to think of yourself as like, well, maybe I'm a good athlete, like, right? Like, I'm great in the gym, but I'm a terrible person in this context. That's likely not entirely true. And when you can have this holistic view of here's my strengths collectively, and here's how I can pull and like cross pollinate across my life, like it's so empowering.
Yeah, it is. It's really beautiful when you think of it in that way. And I really love to play that exercise a lot of what am I grateful for that came from my past, because I often, one exercise that I got from a spiritual advisor was, call someone that you love on the phone, and it has to be someone that you love and someone that you feel is going to be honest with you, and ask them, what is something that is a blind spot that I have that you can recognize within me that you think I need to transform or change? So, what is something that I just don't notice about myself? And I called my mom, and, she said to me, I'm so proud of you for always looking at all the things you need to change and for really giving it your all and for always going all in on the transformation and always thinking about how to make yourself better. And she said to me, but also you have to be better at just being right where you are and just loving right where you are and just embracing who you are in this moment and celebrating it.
Mm.
And so I think that on this journey of transformation and change, we're often looking at those pieces of ourselves, which makes sense that we want to change. But we also have to celebrate all the goodness. And it goes back to what you were saying before. You innately are amazing. Baseline, you're amazing. So we also have to really look at that too. How are we baseline amazing? How is today just amazing? How is everything that came from our past simply amazing? Simultaneous to what do we want to transform and change?
Yeah, that's a very beautiful and impactful point. If no one gets anything else out of this episode, this is it. Because it's exactly as like that, I'll be happy when syndrome, right? I'll be happy when I get this. I'll be happy when I get this. I'll be happy when I'm finally this version. I'll be happy when I've mastered this. And I think you're completely right, where it's like you will never be happy until you can sit with who you are and just be like, okay, I'm okay. I'm at peace,
Yeah,
right?
and you said
Yeah.
this before, and I totally agree with you. I don't like to be stagnant. Like, I always like to be thinking about transformation and change every day. I mean, I wake up in the morning and I go to bed. I mean, I journal before I go to sleep, thinking about my entire day and how I want to do it differently tomorrow. Like, that's the kind of person that I am. I enjoy this. It's like built within me. But, damn, like, we also need to just be okay with where we are. And I have to remind
Yeah.
myself of that all the time. Like, Jasmine, just be good with where you are. Like, you done did good. Like, even if nothing else changed, like, and it stayed just like this, you did great. But I have to tell you that when you go on this reinvention ride, it becomes kind of an addiction.
Mm. It does, because then the world's your oyster and everything's possible. It's like,
Oh, you see it that
what's
way.
next? Yeah,
It's the
it's amazing.
delusion of you walking down the beach being like, that's my condo, that's my condo. You start to think
Yes.
everything is yours and everything is
Yeah.
possible and everything is wonderful. It becomes very addicting to get to that heightened state. And you have to balance that with, I'm good right where I am. If nothing changed, I'd be freaking so happy right where I am.
Yeah. Well, for anyone stuck in the comfort zone who's sitting here thinking, like, how do I even begin? What are your
Mhm.
recommended, like, one, two, or three steps to just like start?
One of the things that I really like to play with is what triggers you for more. Like, I remember when I was when my business wasn't going in the way that I wanted it to go. I was looking at all these amazing coaches who were my friends, and I was saying, well, damn, like, how are they doing that, and why are they doing that, and then I
Yeah.
finally one day was like, oh, these are the triggers for more. These are the
Yes.
things that are showing me that there's more out there. So if you feel stuck and you're like, I don't know where to start, my thing would be like, what on social media, what is it that people are doing, what are you seeing where you're like, damn, I want that, I want more. What are your triggers for more? And I think that's a great place for you to start, because if you're being triggered for more, that means you innately believe that more at least exists. Now we have to identify, second to that, what are the beliefs, what are the thoughts, what are the things, the programs running in your mind that make you think you can't have that. That's where the mindset piece comes in, right? Because if you're being triggered to think, I want that, then you have to really ask yourself, well, why don't I already have it? Like, why isn't it mine yet? What are the mindsets or the programs that tell me I can't have that? Is it worthiness? Is it some kind of belief of failure or thinking of failure? If I go for it, I'm going to fail. And those are the things you have to start looking at transforming. And that sounds really simple, but it's not always simple. So, what I always tell people is patience is key, right? So, the thing about mindset work is it's not like anything else. If I want to write something, I write a social media post, I put it up, it's up. Mindset work is more like you are working through a process. It's not all going to happen in an instant. So sometimes you have to allow the answers to come to you. So giving yourself space, being in nature, taking walks, allowing for yourself to be able to be with yourself. That is key in this situation. So what I would say is find out what's triggering you. Ask yourself, why don't I already have this? What's the program that's running in my mind that's telling me that I'm not capable of having this? And give yourself time for reflection. Give yourself time for introspection. Give yourself time to be with yourself and allow the things to come up. I love to have people have like a thought journal when they're first starting out,
Mhm.
something that you can actually write, like old school, pen and paper, and write down after you are asking yourself these questions. The answers might not come right away. They might come while you're washing the dishes or while you're walking around your apartment, but keep a journal writing down everything that comes to you, all the thoughts, all the things. And you'll start to, and you kind of mentioned this earlier, recognize patterns. You'll start to recognize the same things coming up. That's a great place to start.
Yeah, no, I love that. I'm gonna build on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Triggers. This took me a long time to realize where it's like the not always jealousy, but just like I'm drawn to this, or like, oh, I wish, like you said, I wish I could have that, or like, why did they have it and I don't? Like, those are the things. Like, you're so right. Like, those are the things you look at because it is. It's like I'm jealous for a reason. I'm jealous because I think I'm capable, and I should have that. And like, that's the perfect place to start. And I think once you're in that place, the thing that often makes or breaks it, I find, is your norms in your group, in your environment, and like what you think is normal, right? So if it's this thing, so let's say an example, like let's say you're listening to podcasts and you're like, oh, I want one. But then that initial thought is like, well, I can never have one. Like, I just, this isn't who I am. Look at your norms. Are you around people who listen to podcasts? Are you around people who value podcasts? Are you around people who think that podcasting is cool? If not, go find intentionally either role models, a community, something where it's the norm and it's possible and like we're all working towards it. Even if it's just like a YouTube channel where everyone in the comments is like, yeah, great, this is where I'm at. Like, there's so much support and freedom and validation that comes from that, because whatever we see as our norms is what we think is the norm. It's just what we think is true. And so when you can intentionally break that, like, so much mindset change happens just with that. I feel like I'm going in a rant and a tangent here, but like it's it's crucial.
No,
I
but
mean,
it's true. Yeah.
it's yeah, it's true. And like one of my favorite bits of advice to give people, whatever you feel like is like, if it's starting a podcast and you're like, oh my God, I can never, go out and find examples of people who are doing it really, really well, and go out and find examples of people who are doing it terribly by your standards, and look at the amount of support that they likely have. Right. So it's like, I love YouTube for this reason, because you can go on YouTube and find successful YouTube channels that it's like someone at their desk with terrible lighting talking for an hour and they've got a huge community supporting them. Like, if someone's a perfectionist and they're like, I can never do YouTube because my house doesn't have the lighting and I don't have a $10,000 camera, and you will literally find examples that will normalize it for you and be like, I don't need all this because here's one, two, three, four, five,
Absolutely.
6, 7, 8 people who are doing it and doing it well. And so there's so much beauty and freedom in that as well. So I'll end my
Absolutely. I
tangent
love
there.
that. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's so good that you mentioned the environmental factor. So when we are thinking about transformation and change, we're thinking about those internal things. But in order to create that version of ourselves, we have to have the right support systems and the right environment. So there's the environmental factor is so incredibly important. When it comes to creating your transformation, being around the right people, being around the right situations. I also do love YouTube as well because I love to listen to people's stories of how they became who they are. because oftentimes those stories normalize the things that I'm going through. So they normalize my challenges, they normalize my barriers, they normalize the moments when I am on the floor crying. It feels like what I am going through is a normal process. And so whatever it is that you're seeking in terms of validation, in terms of support, in terms of making it feel like your path, your journey is normal, you can always find it. You just have to seek it.
Yes, that's exactly it. There's billions of us. Like everything is normal at this point. Someone's gone through it.
Mhm.
Hundreds of
Absolutely.
thousands, if not people, right? So like you
Mhm.
just have to look and like don't bury your head in the sand. Just find the people. And I think that for me, it's such a beautiful moment when people do that and they have that light bulb moment of like, oh wow, like I'm actually not alone. And there's people my age, my gender, my nationality, my whatever, insert the blank, who are experiencing this. And like I feel so seen and like is often like how they experience it, like literally like the deep breath and the weight lifting off their shoulders. And it's amazing. Like it's out there, it's at your fingertips. You just have to look for it.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay. Any final thoughts? Anything else you'd like to leave the listeners with? Any tips, advice?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is if you're feeling as though more exists for you, whether you're seeing it and you're triggered to experience that feeling of more, or you're thinking it innately within yourself, like more has got to be out there, it exists and it's out there. And it's up to you to seek it and to find it. And stuck is an illusion. Stuck is a place that you are keeping yourself in, because especially in today's day and age, you can find an answer for everything. Literally everything. I mean, you could ask ChatGPT anything and it'll give you the answer. So, stuck is
Yeah.
truly a place that you are keeping yourself. And
It,
it's okay. There's nothing wrong with you. It's a biological thing to want to be comfortable, but you don't have to stay there. You can make the decision.
I love that. And it's so true because right now we are in a place where I feel like no one has ever been before, where literally everything's possible. You want a 9 to 5, you can have it. You want to be an entrepreneur, you can do that. You want to live in Bali, go for it. Like everything is possible. You just have to choose it and go for it. So I love it. Okay.
Yeah.
So where can everyone find you? Where would you like them to find you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be on the LinkedIn streets all day, every day. So I would love for anyone who is interested in just learning more about what I do, learning more about the concepts that I talk about, to follow me on LinkedIn and just check me out. Check out the resources that I'm providing, the things that I'm talking about. And if it resonates with you, shoot me a DM and join the Courage Crew and get the coaching and support to have your next reinvention. Everything about me is on my LinkedIn profile. And I always love to get DMs from people. I think that's how we started conversating, was in the DMs. I love to get
And
DMs from people just about what they're going through, what support they need. And even if it isn't me, I am so blessed to have people like you and other amazing coaches that I can always, shepherd people over to. And I love to be able to make sure that everyone is getting what they need in this journey that they are seeking to go on.
yeah, and like for anyone new to your world, shout out to you because you have that verified blue LinkedIn top voice that like you're legit, like you are legit on LinkedIn. So if anyone has doubt, please head over there.
Oh, thank you so much. I love that. Thank you.